Joker 2, I'm not even gonna attempt that pretentious French subtitle is out, and well, it's a collapse both critically and commercially, which is not surprising. I actually went out to go see a fan preview back on Monday, and it took me nearly a week to digest the film to put my thoughts down. Normally, you guys know me for my music reviews, but I started this channel with video essays on movies. I stopped doing those because I actually started to write movies myself and conflict of interest. I've returned because this movie overlaps with my love and admiration for Lady Gaga, who undoubtedly is the highlight of this train wreck. This video is going to be structured into two readings that I've seen many people make on this movie, and I will give credit to its boldness in a time where much of entertainment has been catered to fan interest or just making the lowest common denominator happy. Todd Phillips did something somewhat brave here and put forth his own vision, even though it's one that I'm not too fond of, and one that I'm shocked Warner Brothers actually let him do. So I'm just going to briefly run down what led to this movie. 2019 brought us Joker, which as we all know is a huge hit, $1 billion final gross, an overdue Best Actor trophy for Joaquin Phoenix, as well as a Best Score win. That movie got mixed to positive reviews. It was a hit because it was a modern take on Taxi Driver and the king of comedy. It was one that spoke to the lower class, the downtrodden, and the power imbalance between elites and the common man. I personally was not the biggest fan of the film, but I appreciated Phoenix's performance, his Arthur Fleck, who would become the Joker by the end of that movie. A sequel was not in Phillips or Phoenix's interest despite the success it had, because it was meant to be a standalone, but Warner Brothers really wanted a follow-up. Phillips and Phoenix initially intended for a Broadway show to be the sequel, but due to COVID that was scrapped. In 2022, a sequel was announced to be in development, with Lady Gaga rumored to be a fan favorite, Harley Quinn. Gaga would actually confirm her involvement very shortly afterwards and tease her role in the LA Chromatica Ball show with an evil laugh. The film would go on to become a nearly $200 million production, a huge increase from the first movie's $60 to $70 million budget, with Gaga being paid a handsome $12 million and Phoenix being paid $20 million before accounting for any production. So it seemed like it was going to be a hit, but trouble began to brew when the film premiered to mixed reviews in early September in Venice. A wonderful jazz companion record, Harlequin, which was released 1 week prior to the film by Lady Gaga herself, which I reviewed, was honestly needed considering how little singing Gaga gets to do in this movie. Flash forward to right now, the movie has been a flop with audiences and critics alike. Box office estimates were as high as $100 million, it dropped to 60, and now it's well below 50 million, possibly below 40 million domestically. It has also received the lowest cinema score in comic book movie history, even lower than this year's Madam Web. But the question is, was it really that bad? And here's my take. Personally, I don't think the movie's outright awful, I just think that it's obscenely boring. Spoiler warning, by the way, everything from here assumes that you have watched the movie or you just don't care. Joker 2 is a half-baked musical take on Seinfeld's finale. It is sort of like a courtroom drama about the events of the original Joker and an exploration of Arthur Fleck, not the Joker persona that people came for. In a meta sense, Harley, or Lee Quinzel in this film, played by Lady Gaga, becomes somewhat of an audience surrogate, which explains why she's not much in the movie. A big shame, by the way. She is someone who desires to see the Joker unleashed, only to be disappointed that Arthur rejects being the Joker and is just truly someone human. Fleck remains a sympathetic, flawed protagonist that you can't help but pity. He reconciles the consequences of his actions, and you really do get the sense of this helpless person who's confronted with what people want him to be and who he truly is. There's actually a really good opening animated short that's Looney Tunes styled about the Joker and his shadow, which summarizes the point of the movie. I think it actually is better than the movie itself. Bring it back to Lee. Gaga's truly a great actress. Her performance is electric. I think the audience actually woke up every time she was on screen. Was she underwritten and underdeveloped? Honestly, yes. But Gaga does do the most that she can with the material. Her take on Harley wasn't necessarily in love with Joker himself, but the ideology and the persona. She really reminded me of a Charles Manson follower in some sense. I just wish that we had more time to understand who she is. Especially knowing that there were scenes that were cut. There was an alternative, staircase ending where she turns Arthur into the cops, or this money shot of the movie of Harley and Joker at the stairs doing the dance. That's not in the movie. I felt robbed. I think it's a case of really bad false advertisement, because hello, the posters have that shot. As for the musical aspect, this is where the film falls most flat, especially for someone like me who actually does does like musicals. It's half-assed. For one, it's a jukebox musical, so it relies on established classics rather than crafting its own songs. There is admittedly one brilliant original waltz by Gaga named after the film that's way too short for its own good and is the best minute of the picture where they dance on the rooftop and you understand Harley's state of mind. It's shown through the lyrics and the imagery. There's another fun sequence where the Joker tap dances and Harley's on the keys and it feels electric, but these moments happen too far and too few between. The rest of the musical sequences are awkward pauses to the film's plotting that either reiterate what we just saw or feel out of place. The actual acting pieces are not bad at all, but the musical elements just did not add to the movie. For me personally, this movie is like a 2 out of 5. I like some of it. Gaga and Phoenix deserved a stronger story, but the set design, the score, and some of the cinematography, especially in IMAX, is gorgeous. But it all boils down to the plot, which brings me to the first reading that I've seen a lot of people say. Todd Phillips actually hated Joker. It's hard not to see the film as a meta takedown of the original movie. There are so many references to a shitty TV movie based on what Arthur did sprinkled throughout the film, but they just never show it. Some believe that it actually refers to the first movie. The plot revolves heavily around Fleck paying for his crimes and evaluating if he really is the Joker. His lawyer mounts an insanity defense to kind of prevent him from getting the death penalty, and the court case is pretty much just him being publicly pantsed by Harvey Dent, played by industry's Harry Lottie. Some interpret the film to be Phillips putting himself in Joker's shoes and reconciling if he wants to be remembered as the guy who made the first movie. If we read the film that way, Fleck coming to realize that he was never the Joker, but he did do those crimes, feels like Phillips mocking his audience or stepping away from owning the last movie. This reading feels particularly cynical and factors in the fact that Warner Brothers wanted this more than Phillips did. Joker 2019, for all of its flaws, was beloved by its audience because of its messaging about people who are forgotten in the day-to-day lives of a cruel world. This film sort of spits in the face of that and almost feels like a put-down of Arthur Fleck. It paints him as someone that no one should aspire to be, putting him through the ringer. Harley herself being a surrogate for the audience and her rejecting Arthur at the end is meant to be a final blow before the ending happens. And this ending itself is why I think many of the people are mad at the film. In the closing moments of the movie, Arthur is back in jail. He's sentenced to death. He's gonna die anyway, but he gets a call from an unseen visitor and is instead just stabbed and killed by a random inmate who takes on the Joker mantle by stabbing him and then carving a smile into his face, kind of like a Dark Knight reference. I think it heavily implies that Arthur was never going to be the Joker to begin with and was kind of a proto-Joker. It's more of a force or a persona evil people adopt in Gotham. This ending makes it so that neither Phillips or Phoenix can return. Phillips said he's never coming back, and it closes a chapter on this character on a sad note. For some, it can read as mean-spirited. Personally, if this read is correct, I think it's a bold but insensitive choice. It's also somewhat inspired for Phillips to make this character an avatar for his creative soul. And also, the fact that he got to spend hundreds of millions of dollars of a studio's money to tank and destroy his own creation, I think that's the most Joker thing that he could have ever done. However, it is a cutting blade back into the audience. People who enjoyed the original hate it, people who hated the original feel vindicated in hating it, and no one walks away happy. I also think that it's unfair to Gaga and Phoenix in a sense that they were very muted in their promotion of the movie. Gaga seems to actively be distancing herself away from it between the jazz records, satiating music fans, or heading into her 7th studio record. There's another take that I've seen more positive reviews highlight, and that the movie is actually about exploitation. This reading infers that the audience itself is rejecting this movie because they are part of the problem. Throughout the film, we see Fleck forced to take on this role of an avatar for a movement that he does not identify with, how the people around him enable him in the worst ways, and how he just wanted to be loved for being himself and he never got that. This ties into the overarching imagery of shadow and self established by the intro short. We see this through the guards who mistreat Arthur, but then show him occasional kindness when it benefits them. Joker would have never met Lee if one of those guards had not taken him to a music class just to have something to make fun of him with. It's only after Fleck flips the tables later in the movie and humiliates them on screen that they fully turn on him and they brutalize him in a very graphic way that should not have been in the movie. Harley herself is actually a big enabler. From moment one, it's clear that she's only there for Joker and not Arthur. The first line is actually asking if it's really him. She fakes being an inmate when in reality she comes from money, studied psychology, tried to get close to him, and at one point coerces him into a moment of passion. But it's only after he wears the makeup that they do anything, and then she fakes being pregnant. Her love for him, at least from his perspective, is what drives him to take the persona again. He even fires his lawyer and represents himself in court. The surviving victims of the previous movie, like the girl who he imagined a whole relationship with in the last movie, and poor Gary Puddles, his former coworker who watched him kill people. They clearly did not want to come back. They were brought back solely in the narrative by Dent to ensure that Fleck paid for his crimes, and in many ways they're also just as exploited as Fleck. Joker is pushed to the very brink, witnessing the death of his only friend in prison at the hands of the guards. Only after seeing that does he decide, oh my god, I don't want to be the Joker anymore. So he finally comes clean on the final day of court, owns up to everything, only to be sentenced to death by the jury. I think the jury is supposed to be us in a way. It's only after a loose car bomb blows up the courtroom and frees him, and then these two groupies try to help him keep the movement alive, but he runs away from them, finds Lee on the staircase, the iconic staircase, and then ends up being rejected by him and sent to prison. Ultimately, this movie's not about the Joker per se, it's about Fleck having to deal with the fallout, and the film's defenders think that that is the point of the movie. In some ways, the movie itself posits that the audience would turn on itself because it was never promised what it was like advertised to be. And in some ways, it does make the film just a little bit braver because of that, but does that actually mean anything? At least on my end, even with both of these cases made, I can't help but feel cheated by the potential of the picture. They managed to wrangle a huge budget, Lady Gaga, and all of this hype just to self-destruct in a way that doesn't make anyone happy aside from Phillips and company, who walked away with quite a payday. I truly understand art for art's sakes, and I do have to give it to Warner Brothers for being either just boldly confident in Phillips' vision, not even letting James Gunn do anything, not even doing a test screening because they wanted to avoid spoilers or interference, or just them being so dumb that they just wrote a blank check and committed further damage to the DC brand. Still, in the long run of things, there were better ways to have told the story. I do think that this movie would have greatly benefited from making Harley less of a C-plot and more of a co-headliner as portrayed in the marketing, which was extremely misleading. Original songs or better chosen material that showed us the characters who they were emotionally, something that all good musicals do. I feel like that is something that would have helped this movie greatly. Likewise, while Fleck is definitely not someone that people should strive to be, I felt like there wasn't enough compassion for the character on the creator's end. I'm not telling you to give him a happy ending, but I did feel like that hurt the film in a sense, because why are you even gonna root for this guy or follow his story if he doesn't get an inkling of joy? Someone's story can come to a tragic end, but the film flays him alive a little too much. Regardless, for better or worse, Joker 2 does exist, and to some degree in a world where things are being focus grouped to hell and made solely just for being liked and not being inherently good, I think that's great. I personally still would give this only a 4 out of 10 or 2 stars on Letterboxd, which I'm plugging. Add me at Eljon. I'd be happy to add you guys back, and that is a wrap. I mean, that's all, folks. It was really fun to put back my movie critic lens on. I want to give a quick shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting this channel. A shout out to my subscribers. Thank you for being patient with me as I work through these upcoming video essays that I cannot wait to show you guys. Brat is coming out next week, the Brat remix album. I will be covering that. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, what you felt about Joker, and what you think Lady Gaga 7 is going to be like. I cannot wait to see your comments, and I don't expect this to do numbers at all. I do not want to be part of movie like YouTube, but I just wanted to cover this because I love Gaga. And honestly, I just wanted to give her some flowers. I will see you next video. Thank you so much.